Done? We ready? Everybody set? Bram Radio, folks. Hey, we're glad you're here. Today's episode is with my dude, Mr. Brad Beyer.
Hey, Bram.
Brad Beyer.
Thanks for having me.
So just by way of introduction, so people can know who is sitting in this chair over here, just in case someone doesn't recognize you. You are originally from Wisconsin. You grew up in Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Yeah, Waukesha, Wisconsin.
And then you went to college in Minnesota, and right?
I did. I went to University of Minnesota for a couple of years.
University of Minnesota, and you studied.
Well, first year
you didn't study.
First year, I didn't study anything.
You didn't study anything. And then
second, well, what happened was when I went there, I'd always been interested in maybe trying acting. Right. I didn't do it in high school because I played sports. I played football and basketball and baseball. But it was always in the back of my mind. It was something I wanted to try. I'd go to movies and I'd go to plays and I'd see it. And it was something that sort of was, it made an impact on me. It was something I wanted to try. So when I got to the University of Minnesota, there was a class called Acting for Non-Theater Majors. And
that's what they called the class?
That's what they called it, yeah. And I did it and it just, something clicked. Like I loved it. And I thought, well,
that's kind of like the Impossible Burger, kind of thing.
Pretty much. There's no real commitment to anything, It's but there was something about it, the freedom and the work that you did to prepare a character, like it was enticing.
Yeah.
And also the performance aspect of it reminded me of getting ready for a game or playing like sports in high school for me were everything. It kept me out of trouble. It kept me doing my homework. So this felt kind of like that.
Did it? So you went to that school. After that, you fell in love with acting.
Yeah.
Ended up moving to New York. Did some off Broadway.
Yes.
And then from there, you came here to Los Angeles. We're in Los Angeles right now. In fact, right now we're at the Every Nation City Church offices. They're letting us use their office as our kind of makeshift studio up here because I wanted to come up here and hang out with you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And this is where you live here in Los Angeles, and you are a professional actor.
I am. Yes,
And you've been in just a couple things that are pretty high profile, important that people are going to recognize you from.
Listen, being an actor is an interesting career path. If somebody would have told me back when I started that it would have gone this way, I may have thought twice about it. But ultimately,
what's that bit? Since you're a white middle-aged male in Hollywood,
that doesn't really bode well for anybody these days. But there's a lot of ups and downs. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's been some great, I'm talking about career-wise, there's been some great, incredible moments and projects that I've gotten
when you said, if I could have talked to myself and told myself, my younger self.
Yeah.
Told them what?
Well, I may want to rethink that because everything that's happened to me in my career and the jobs that I have gotten and have not gotten have led me down a path. One of those paths was meeting my wife, working at a hotel, doing a side job when I was out of work. And ultimately, it was one of the most important moments of my life, right? I met my wife, the person that I've, I'm spending my life with, and
she's amazing.
She's incredible.
Wow.
And we have two beautiful children, and so I would probably not change a thing when I think about that because my children and my wife are the most important things in my life. The work and being an actor is also very important, but nothing can replace finding the right person and having a family. For me, anyway, that's something that I always wanted. Even when I started in this business, when you have these ideas of fame and being well known and being successful, I always wanted a family. I always wanted a wife and children.
Yeah.
So in that respect, it's pretty great.
What's the hard part?
The rejection, the not knowing when your next job is going to come. Not being able to not having that sort of continuity and you start to crave stability. And that's really hard to come by in this business. I've had stretches of it, but ultimately it's very up and down. And riding through that in life with a partner can be difficult. And we've had our ups and downs with that. I mean, my wife, God bless her, is very successful and she's very good at her job. And, you know, when things started to slow down for me in the last couple of years with the pandemic and everything else that's been going on, she's really held down the fort. So I'm incredibly lucky.
Yeah.
And it's also given me the time to spend with my boys. I had an actor tell me once, when you're out of work and you have children, the time that you're not working is never misspent because you're with your children. And I believe that to be very true. These last few years with my kids have been incredible. So I guess I wouldn't trade that for anything. Even if if I had a big job and I was making a lot of money, I wouldn't be able to spend the time with my children. So it's always a trade-off. There's always something. And I guess in that equation, spending time with my wife and children is more important than anything. So,
right. Yeah. The first time I ever saw you, I was watching the movie 42.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact,
big old racist bastard.
Big old racist pitcher. You were up there. You were letting it rip.
Yeah.
And I remember watching you on the screen, and I told my wife, I'm like, I don't like this dude at all. And she was like, the guy or the actor, I've spending 21 years in stunts and stuff like that. I know a bunch of actors.
Sure.
I said, I don't like that dude. And she said, the actor or the character? And I was like, the character. And she's like, that means the actor's doing a good.
I guess I was doing a good job.
You were doing a great job.
He's a real jerk.
So then fast forward, 3 years, maybe 2 years? How long? What was it between 42 and
it's like 4 years, 4 years, three and a half, 4 years.
Yeah. Then I got to meet you in person, and when I met you at the mall and ran up to you with my autograph book, it was like, oh my God, Brad Beyer, will you please sign my?
That wasn't how it went. No, you called me fatty and told me to stand against the wall.
I didn't mean it. Much.
That was a humbling week for me, but I'll never forget it.
So let's talk about that for a minute.
Sure.
How you and I actually met.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing movie. Thank you for your service.
To me, that movie, I'm so proud of that movie, and that movie means so much to me. And I think it's probably the best movie I've ever been involved with.
It was.
Nobody saw it, which is so unfortunate. It's a very polarizing. It's very polarizing subject matter.
It touches it gets into some issues that are real issues.
Right.
That to some degree I've had some face-to-face with some of those issues, especially in some of my really close friends that that have seen way worse stuff than I ever did militarily.
Right.
But this movie gets right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I mean, right in the middle of it. And watching, it gets into suicide ideations and veteran suicide. It gets into mental health issues, and it touches on post-traumatic stress, and it gets into reintegration and all those things, right?
Right.
But man, that movie, watching that movie after knowing all of you guys as well as we got to know each other.
Yeah. That was a real get to know you week.
I was watching that movie, and it was, I was so proud of that movie and of you guys doing it.
Right.
That that movie will change a dude if he lets it. That's how I look at that.
Listen, I grew up in a family where my dad served, both my grandfathers served, both my uncles served. It was something I always wanted to do. When I was in college, the second year at the University of Minnesota, I wanted to start NROTC and hopefully go into the Marines and be an officer, and that was something I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I found the theater and changed direction and became a very theatrical. I did find the theater, and I ended up being an actor, and my life went that way instead. But I'd always felt, if there was one thing in my life that I did regret up until later in my adulthood, that I regretted was not serving, not being a part of the military, because it was something that was always very important in my family and held in very high regard.
Yeah.
And this was an opportunity for me to sort of be a part of that without really being a part of it, but representing something that I believed in very deeply. And every time I see that movie, I cry, because I remember what we all went through to make it. And I remember
that movie was expensive to make from an emotional standpoint. It had to have been. Now, I wasn't on set, and to answer everybody's question as to what we're alluding to, myself and 3 other guys were on the cadre to be able to teach these young actors how to be military members.
Teaching is a very loose term.
Was it? We didn't teach. We
forcibly learned it. No, listen. That week. So let me set it up for you.
Okay.
I get the call.
Just tell the story.
Yeah.
You should just tell stories about it. Because
I get the call. I auditioned a couple times with Jason, and I felt like it all went really well. And I was portraying a soldier that lost his life, named James Doster in Ireland.
And he's really a person.
He's a real person, and his wife is being portrayed in the movie. Mm-hmm. I'm portraying him. So I went and met with his wife and started having conversations with her about, and she was gracious enough to share things about him. And I went to visit the family and get to know the wife and his girls a little bit. So it became very personal. And so I get the call at Christmas that I got this part. I'm backtracking a little bit, and I'm like, okay, it's like 3 days after Christmas, and I'm like drinking eggnog and terribly out of shape. Was not prepared for what was about to. Yeah, let's not tread lightly. And I had, I get a call from my agent saying, you're going to be going to what's called military immersion camp. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, what's that? And they're like, well, it's a military. You're going to learn how to, be a military person. I'm like, oh, it's probably pretty easy because we're a bunch of actors. They got it was like walking into a buzzsaw. I get off the plane on the way to this military camp that we're gonna.
Do you remember what Johnny and I named the camp?
I can't remember.
Camp Juilliard, Home for Wayward Boys.
Yeah, that's appropriate.
Yeah.
They drive us, so we have no idea where we're staying. They drive us to this very sort of rough looking hotel on the edge of Atlanta in a neighborhood that was, I guess you could say it was a little unsavory.
It was sporty.
It was
sporty. There were people that lived in that hotel.
I know. It was something.
Yep. And we fed them every day. Do you remember?
Anytime we had anything left over, Johnny Hoffman was.
We just ordered them. We just ordered extra food. So we made sure that there was enough left for the people that lived there.
It was inspiring. That was. I mean, you guys were all about service, and we learned that. But I remember seeing Johnny, who is we called the Master Chief because he was one of the main guys that put the Navy SEALs through BUDS training, right? Mm-hmm. He's legendary for that.
He sure is.
And I remember seeing him, and I walked up to him, and I saw you guys walking around with your hats and your sunglasses looking very intimidating, and I was, scared shitless. I'm like, I just got off the plane, had a panic attack, and I walk into this situation, right? And Johnny's standing there staring at me with his beard, and I walk over. I'm like, hi, my name's Brad Beyer. He's like, I don't care who you are, and you sure as F don't want to know me.
Yeah.
I was like,
sounds right.
I was like, and then one of the producers, Anne, came up to me and pulled me aside. She's like, listen, Brad, I just want to tell you this is going to be a very bad week for you. I'm like, what? It's going to be very hard. The training's going to be I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, if you can get through the week, we'll have a nice room for you at the Westin downtown, and you can have a cheeseburger in your room and relax. I'm like, oh my God. Taking your phones away. I'm like, oh my God. This is. So then they took our blood pressure, right? They were doing these sort of medical workups on us that night.
Yeah.
And my blood pressure was like through the roof. And Johnny hears about it and comes in and goes, why is your blood pressure so high? Get it down by tomorrow. I was like, okay. How do I... It was one of the most intimidating first meetings I've ever had, and all you guys were there, and we were standing up against the wall, and I remember you explaining to us that it was going to be a terrible week and that we needed to brace ourselves, and you weren't lying, bro.
You just tell it like it is.
You weren't lying.
Spitting truth.
It was.
I remember when you guys first came in. It was we had to order sandwiches.
Yeah.
For you guys, and it was just a sandwich. There was a soul food place down the street. That's where we got the most of our food from because there was
great.
a ton of calories. It was amazing food. But I think that night we were getting Subway sandwiches.
It was Jimmy John's.
Jimmy John's.
And you called us all by our names, our character names, and you're like, Doster, you're getting the Big John. I hope you like roast beef. If you don't, too bad. I was like, I like it. And one of the guys in the cast was a vegetarian, and he's like, you're getting the ham and cheese. And he goes, but I'm a vegetarian. You go, not this week, you're not.
Yeah, we had that discussion. Man, it was probably a couple years ago. We were talking on the phone. I was just like, did my urging towards,
eating
being a carnivore, did that take? And he was just like, man, my guts were tore up that week.
Porta potty. Johnny was throwing rocks at it. Get out of there. He's like, I can't. I got diarrhea. It's too bad. Do diarrhea on your own time.
The movie before you guys was Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk.
Yeah.
And there was Joel Alwyn.
Yeah.
And this other guy, his name was Barney something, but these guys were Brits.
Yeah.
And you know how we are about accents.
No, we had a Brit and a guy. We had one Brit and one guy from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Beulah and Joe Cole.
Yeah. It was like, I will not.
You had to wear that American soldier thing around their neck and recite it anytime you heard the accent. Yeah. If I hear that British accent, I will kill you.
Better speak American. You're America now.
Yeah.
And those guys would be across the grinder outside the porta potty, and when I would see him talking, I would yell at him. I would say, "Hey, I could hear you. I could hear that British accent from here." And they would look at each other, and they're, "How does he know?" And they asked me later, like, "How did you know that we were just talking normal?" And I said, "Well, you have two British guys standing with no supervision nearby.
Yeah.
What do you think you were going to do?" I'm not stupid. Like, I understand that you are going to absolutely 100% violate the rules if no one's around to moderate the rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
So of course I knew it. And it was like, oh, so you assumed. I'm like, oh no, I knew. Oh, yeah. I knew. Yeah.
Well, the thing about it was probably up to that point, and maybe even ever since, it was one of the most difficult physical and emotional things I had to endure in my adult life. And it was just a taste of what you guys really do. So the appreciation for what our military guys do, especially our special forces guys, go through to do what they do is just unbelievable. And just to have a little bit of it as a normal person really shows you how hard it is and what a special person it takes to actually do that job. But what the training did for us is it brought us together. We suffered together for a week. And, man, I was getting my ass kicked. I was 40 pounds overweight, the oldest guy in the group by 15, 16 years. But I wasn't going to give up. I wasn't going to quit. You didn't. I wasn't going to quit.
I think we had to modify some things. I know you had shoulder issues.
My shoulder was one of those crawls across the concrete.
Yeah, it was on fire.
Yeah.
I think something went south there, and I was just like, we got to look after this guy.
But I wasn't going to stop.
I knew you weren't, and I knew that. I could see that. I could see that in you.
Not with that project, and not with the story we were trying to tell, and the guys we were representing, and what they gave and their sacrifice. Like, it was like you just couldn't.
Yeah.
And
you were representing real dudes, like your guy Doster, and Adam Schumann, Miles Teller's character.
Is such a great guy.
Absolutely. And he and I are still in touch. We're still good friends. It's just, he is an amazing dude. I told him about this. I said, "Hey man, I got to get you on Bram Radio."
Yeah.
And he's just like, "We could talk about hunting and fishing." I was like, this is man stuff. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah. He's an incredible guy.
So oh man, that guy. So you remember when Beulah was messing up on the radio?
Yeah.
And so I took this big, huge 2x4,
carry it around,
and I took a Sharpie and I colored in like a radio buttons on the front. I took an antenna, a pen, and I taped it to the top. Like it was an antenna, and I told him that every time he was going to talk to an instructor, he had to do it on the radio and use proper radio procedures.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I'll put a picture up on the screen so everybody can see it. But it was, and he was, I mean, such a good sport, and his haka.
Oh, it was great. Well, you guys would have him do it, and you guys would all be in awe of it, and then afterwards, you'd pretend like you didn't like it and then chastise him for doing it.
100%.
This is America.
Yeah.
But you guys were like, but you liked it. I could see you guys getting into it.
It was awesome.
It was awesome. Yeah.
It was awesome. And he was like, I mean, getting up in our faces and just. And,
he's an incredible kid.
Yeah, dude. It was. I'm getting chills now thinking about him by himself, alone.
I know.
Doing the haka in the most stressful scenario with a bunch of dudes you don't know. That are absolute just meat eaters, and then you're over here, and you got a bunch of actors that are just trying to just do what they're told, and then some dude comes up and goes, "Shirt off, haka now," and he just
he jumped into it. He was amazing.
Yeah, I you in touch with him at all?
I saw him. I went down to Hawaii to do a NCIS Hawaii, or was it? I can't remember what it was. It was one of those shows.
But he was out there for 5-0?
Yeah. No, Hawaii 5-0. That's we did that. So we got to hang out. We went and saw Pearl Harbor together, and like,
oh, nice.
It was amazing. I love that guy. He's like a brother for life. All those guys are, after that.
Yeah, you guys went through something that's very binding. It's very bonding and binding.
Yeah.
And I remember when Johnny and I were first going down there was a movie that came out called 13 Hours.
Oh, yeah.
And it was about one of my closest friends in the teams, Ty Woods. And while the movie is happening, Johnny and I looked at each other like this was a terrible idea coming to this movie. And we're in the theater and just not doing so great, shall we say.
Yeah.
There's snot bubbles involved and stuff. And these two little kids walk out and they walk by me and Johnny and they start making fun of us. And we're like, little kids, so their mom saw that, and we walked out probably about 5 minutes later after we waited until all the credits were done and everything else, and nobody else was left in the theater. And we walked out, and the kids are both standing at attention by the door. And the mom said, "Boys, go ahead, tell them. We're really sorry for laughing at you, and the way you guys responded to that movie, it must have meant something to you, and we're really sorry about that."
Yeah,
it was, and I'm trying to remember what they said. I don't remember exactly. It was something like that. It was really sweet,
right?
And so we just got down there on a knee, and we're just high-fiving these kids, and they gave us hugs, and it was really cool. And the mom is sitting back there, and she's just like, "Thank you,"
Yeah, that's cool.
And she said, "Were you guys in the military?" And she said, and we said we're retired now. And she said, "Well, thank you for your service." And all of a sudden Johnny was like, and he's like, "Thank you, ma'am. I really appreciate it." And Johnny looks at me and he's like, "We're taking those guys to see that movie." Yeah. I'm like, "What guys?" He goes, "The thank you for your service guys." Mm-hmm. As soon as she said it, that's when he got the idea.
Yeah. Interesting.
Do you remember when that happened?
Of course I do. I mean, it was at the end of the first day, and we were,
It was the first day that went.
It was the first day.
Wow.
It was the end of the first day. And we were all, beat to shit, like tired, emotionally spent. We were at it since 4:30 or 5 in the morning. And you guys didn't really take it easy on us through the day. Yeah. I mean, it was out of control. I think I was vomiting.
It was very controlled. It was very controlled.
I was naked in a mud puddle, and it's like 50 degrees. I'm like, what is going on? What is going on?
It was a very big mud puddle too.
Oh, Jesus. Oh my God. I ingested, crawling through the mud puddle, I ingested a bunch of it and then vomited up the water, and you guys were going, yeah. It's a good time.
Good time. I remember before we went, we just said, "Listen, you guys might see movie posters on the wall with your pictures on it.
Yeah.
Don't let us see you looking at it."
Yeah.
About one bit. And I think Insurgent was out.
Yeah.
And Miles had a movie poster on the wall.
There,
and he just walked by. He was like, he wanted to stop and look at it.
He
didn't even.
No, he wasn't stupid.
Got in there, and you guys all sat along the front row, and Johnny and I sat about halfway up. And then when the movie was over, Johnny said, "I got the front row. You have everybody else." And so Johnny started making his way down. And I just kind of stood up in the movie theater and said, okay, everybody listen up. Something interesting is about to happen. This is my buddy, Master Chief Hoffman. He's going to go up front. He's going to be talking to the guys who are in front in their uniforms, and he is going to be explaining something to them. You are more than welcome to stay and listen.
Yeah.
But I want you to stay quiet if you do. But if you want to leave, you're free to leave. No, but we're doing something completely different. It has nothing to do with this movie.
Yeah.
However, the guys in the front row, they're actors. They're about to do a movie. They are not in the military, but we're giving them a taste of the military experience for their movie and for their enjoyment as well. Well, for our enjoyment. And so he went up there and pretty much just lit into you guys about why you think why it is that he should allow you to wear the military uniform.
Well, it was not. I mean, there was that, but there was also sitting through that movie and hearing you and Johnny become emotional over certain things, and what that was powerful. I mean, to see guys like you have an emotional response to something that was clearly so personal and deep and meant something so much to you guys, it really had an impact on us. We were able to see, like, this thing that we're doing means something to a lot of people, and it's very important, and it's to be taken very seriously, and you didn't want to mess it up.
Right.
You didn't want to mess it up. You wanted to get it right.
So, I mean, I remember that movie being very, like, that one hit me in the heart, and it's just because I knew him so well, and I'm in this movie watching this, just thinking, remembering of all the stuff that we would do together, because we were on a team together, right? Just all the stuff that you do when you're on a team together, all the times you got away with something, and some of the times that you didn't, and there is we wanted to use that movie as a moment to create an environment of brotherhood for you guys, and for you guys to hear each other talk about what is the real reason that what is I guess the sub reason why you're here? Because the main reason you're here is because you're a great actor, and the other reason you're here is because you get to do what you're doing. It's your job. Another reason you're here is you're gonna make a bunch of money doing it. Another reason you're here is because, and we can go through a bunch of those, right? Yeah. But then there's this reason underneath it all that we wanted to create, right? And and almost I want you to be able to learn something that is going to support him in what he's doing, but it's not just about this movie. Right. It's about the rest of your lives together, and some of you are going to bond up and some of you won't. And at the end of the day, I remember after we got back from that movie, oh, by the way, leaving that movie theater, remember how all the people just lined the hall? Yeah. That whole thing, they were all saying, "Hey, thank you for your service. Yeah. Hey, thank you for your service." And
I'm like, oh man,
like when that movie comes out and they remember any of you, it will make sense to them then why that was so poignant. Right. But we went back to we had an instructor brief after every day. Things that we could do better, things that we needed to tighten up. What did we do that was maybe a little too far? What did we do that wasn't far enough? And so every one of you guys had training files and training records, and we had a bunch of oversight that you guys didn't even know about, and timelines and things that you can do and things that you can't. Right. And it was a very abbreviated boot camp that was, in our opinion, very light, because we couldn't injure you. We can hurt you, but we got injured. We didn't want to injure you. Yeah. Then you end up with your shoulder issue. Yeah.
Well, I when you see the movie, my character is spoken of a lot. I'm in a few scenes that are important, but you speak of my character a lot. He's gone. He was killed in action. So those guys had to think of me because that's what they knew from our training together. Yeah. So I wanted it to be, all of us did everything we could to make sure we got it right. So when you're interacting, when the characters are interacting with each other, there's a reference, there's a familiar feeling there. And I think that training that you guys did was so important, and it's a huge part of why that movie is as good as it is. It really is.
Yeah,
it was such a key element into making it real and authentic. And there had to be some suffering. You had to go through some suffering to make that real. Otherwise, it's all surface.
Yeah.
You know? And we did that together. I'm very so proud of it.
We knew. So our job was to create adversity, and our job was to trust you with the adversity.
Yeah.
That was our job. And that was and you know, when we did Billy Lynn, there was a few of those guys we really didn't trust with adversity.
Yeah.
And that was our reference point. Well, I think Lone Survivor was more of our reference point, and those guys were all it was just a bunch of awesome,
those guys
big,
were awesome,
fit dudes and out there doing awesome things.
Yeah.
And then we did Billy Lynn. It wasn't quite that. And so our bar was reset.
Yeah.
But then when you guys came along, being able to sit with you guys, and that was when we really identified our job is to trust you with adversity, create adversity, and trust you with it.
Right.
And I remember that there is so much that happens in my life that I am just there's just that is massive adversity. It's just, there are times where I look at my life and isn't anything going right?
Yeah.
It's like I got kids acting up, and my kids are like half of them are out of the house,
Right.
One of them's right there.
Yeah.
Did you just wave? Right there. He just waved like
Great.
everybody can see him.
It's perfect.
But these guys, like they when they hurt, I hurt.
Yeah.
They're going through adversity. I'm going through adversity.
Absolutely.
And I remember just when I first became a believer, I remember one of the first things that my pastor told me was, this is not going to be easy. It's not like you become a Christian and then everything just all of a sudden the lights turn on in the room and everything's all rosy and everything's perfect. You know exactly what to say, exactly where to go, everything else. No, it doesn't work like that. And if I am in a tough, it can be something that's not even that tough. I can stub my toe on something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just like, oh gosh, darn it. No. Bad words probably gonna come out of my mouth. Want to know why? It's just because that's just kind of how I'm wired.
Me too.
It's just so I have a bunch of struggles that I've been through, adversity. There have been a bunch of really tough situations that I've gone through, adversity. But the thing is that God knows that he can trust me with every bit of these adversities. Now, God does not do evil, but God is going to show me a way through it, and I'm never going to be by myself. And that is super important to me. That is a super key part of this life, is that I know that through all the adversity, God isn't going to give me something I can't handle. And in the middle of it, when I'm sitting there going through my struggle, God's saying, I can trust you with that adversity. And so I remember thinking that when I was there, because I know we called you guys the kids. Whenever we talked about you guys as a group, we talked about you guys as the kids or the guys. Mm-hmm. And I remember, like, Johnny and I were talking about how you guys must feel being there, thinking that you're with a bunch of guys that absolutely hate you, and their job is to teach you something and enjoy watching your pain. There was some degree of that.
Oh, of course.
But man, we just fell in love with you guys on day one. We were like, these guys are Beulah is Haka, Cole in that weird, like, stoic British look he always had on his face.
With the Flock of Seagulls haircut.
Yeah, Flock of Seagulls haircut. We made you guys make a Flock of Seagulls music video. No, it was Aha. Yeah, Take On Me.
He got there late, remember? He got there a day late. So when we came back from the movie, he didn't go to the movie. He was waiting there in the hallway, and you guys just descended upon him like a bunch of vultures. You're like, what is with that hair? Because he was doing the show Peaky Blinders.
Yes.
Where he had this period haircut where the hair kind of swooped over his eye. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell's with that hair? Oh my God. What are you? Flock of seagulls?
Yeah.
Oh, that was funny. I ran so far away. And he was just, I was like, oh, I'm just glad I'm not him right now.
Man, we just loved you guys, man. It was so cool that after it was all done, being able to bond with you guys and then show you guys like who we really were.
Yeah, no, that was great.
You know,
that moment when it was all over and we got to actually see you as human beings and not torture chamber people.
Yeah.
It was incredible. You know, it was great. And you know, my wife told me before I left, she's like, you'll probably make friends with the military guys before you do with the actors. And that's kind of what happened. But
yeah,
that's okay with me, you know.
I remember when we were, I think day one, I said, I want you guys to really closely pay attention to us, the instructors, what we say, how we say it, our mannerisms, our characteristics, the things that make us unique.
Yeah.
Pay attention to those. Cue in on the things that we say repeatedly, the things that we say. And at the end, you guys are going to do skits and you get to make fun of us.
Yeah, that was fun.
And because that's a tradition in our branch of the military,
right?
In our community in the military, that every time you move from phase to phase of training in SEAL training,
you get to roast your instructors.
You get to roast your instructors on the way out, and the instructors love it because they get to roast each other.
Yeah,
through watching each other get roasted by the students.
Sure.
And so, man, every time you guys would bust up on Johnny, it was so insanely funny that my stomach actually hurt. And Johnny's like, whose bright idea was to give these guys the time to do skits? And it was like 2 a.m. too, you know, it was we had to get truck lights and put it on the PT stage.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, well, Johnny and I talked about this. I said, yeah, the part of this I didn't think about was when you get professional actors to make a chance to make fun of you,
it's going to be good.
It's going to be amazing. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. You guys were making fun of Hoffman and his painted toenails. And
man, that dude he's an intense guy. I love the guy. He's incredible. He's a great human being, but boy, he was intimidating. And, you know, to go into it as a grown, fully developed man at 42 or 3, which I was at the time, to be intimidated by another man that's something. Mm-hmm. And to feel that is uncomfortable. And it was intimidating as hell.
Yeah.
You know? It was rough.
Yeah.
But I think it made the movie really good. I think it really helped the movie become what it was.
When you were your first movie that you did was General's Daughter, right? That was your breakout.
It was like the first major studio movie that kind of had an impact.
When you were doing that, because General's Daughter, let's see, who's in that? Was that a
John Travolta
movie?
Madeline Stowe, James Cromwell, Timothy Hutton.
James Cromwell, he's in all those movies that are like that. You know, he's always the senator
he's been
that
doing it forever. Yeah,
the senator that went south. You know what I mean? That's that's that guy. How did that change your mind about your career? Like, did it? Well, I guess more. Did it change your mind? But did it solidify the fact you wanted to be an actor, or did you look at it and say like, I think I'm going to give this a shot. I might give it another chance. Like what happened there with the?
No, I mean, I was at that point. I moved to New York to start studying in '94. I did that movie in '98, and I'd done a couple of TV things and smaller movies before that, and plays, lots of theater. So I was really dedicated to it. It was something I really wanted to do. There was no if or maybe. It was like, this is what I'm doing. It did sort of validate my choices, that I was able to do that movie in that role, and kept me going forward. Now, since then, there's been a lot of ups and downs, right? Like I talked about before.
Yeah.
At that moment, I was young and like very optimistic about my career and where I was headed. So it was a huge positive. I loved doing it. It was great. It was a great role, and a lot of great people were involved with it. So
what's the difference between acting on stage and acting in a movie?
Well,
I guess a camera. So a camera.
Yeah, the camera's in your face, and everything you do with a camera in your face has to be smaller and more personal and more. If you think something when the camera is pointed at you, it'll show up on stage. You have to make sure everybody in the back row is hearing you, so it's automatically a little more physical and a little more pronounced, so everyone can kind of read what you're doing. But the key is to do that and still make it real. You always want it to be real, but you have to make sure that if it's authentic, that it's being projected out so everyone can see it and understand it.
Are you at least mic'd up?
No, you're not mic'd up. Yeah, it's all your own instrument. And I loved it. I haven't done it in a really long time. It's been years since I've done theater because I live in Los Angeles and I have a family, and it doesn't really make sense to do right now. I mean, hopefully in the future I'll get another opportunity to do it because I love it. It's an actor's medium when you're out there on stage, and it's just you and the audience and the words and the other actors. It's great. It's an incredible medium. I love it.
So what's happening now? What are you up to now? Is there something else that you're working on? I'm
going to do a show called The Old Man.
Okay.
When we get back to work, I was about to start before the strike happened, and that's with Jeff Bridges and John Lithgow. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to getting back to work.
Those are some legends there.
Yeah, definitely. So,
and your last major one was Ford versus Ferrari?
Yeah, I had a small part in that movie. It was great.
I didn't even know you were in it because you never said anything to me.
Yeah.
And I sat down in it, and we're in the movie, and there you are, and you're just you're being a dick to the dude that owns the garage,
Bale.
And I'm sitting there he is having so much fun doing that.
It was fun.
He had so much fun doing that role.
It was great, and you get to work with Christian Bale, is arguably one of our greatest actors, right? And James Mangold directed it, and it was really, really, really fun. I'm glad I did it. It ended up being a really great movie. So when you get to be a part of something like that, it's always special.
Yeah.
You do a lot of things in your career, a lot of work you do because you need to do it, and you got to get paid, and you got to make money. And then there's things like Thank You for Your Service or 42 or Ford versus Ferrari that are special, and they tell a great story, and you could show your kids those movies and be proud of them.
Yeah.
That's one thing I always think about, is like, I hope like one of my children look at some of the stuff that I've done, that they'll be proud and feel good about it, you know?
Do you remember my my TMZ speech?
Yes. Don't end up on TMZ or come kick our, what's.
Yeah. Like it'll be an angry black man standing at the foot of your bed, we get you up, making you do push-ups in the middle of the night. Yeah. I think I owe Miles a visit.
I think he ended up on TMZ once.
Yeah.
In San Diego.
In San Diego. And how I knew he was going to end up on TMZ is because I think I got some phone calls from police officers.
Oh, no, really?
And because I know a lot of police officers in our town.
Yeah.
And that was interesting. So if you see Miles or hear from Miles,
do you talk to him?
Do I? I
text with him every now and then. He's a fantastic actor.
He sure is, man.
He's I think he's one of the most talented actors around.
Tell him I said hi, and tell him I still owe him a visit for
the
violating the TMZ clause.
I'm sure he'd be happy to see you show up at his front door.
I'm sure he would not.
He would.
He would not.
He would.
He probably would.
Yeah, he would.
Oh man, I got along well with him. I really just enjoyed all you guys, man, and we had so much fun doing that one project. But then since then, watching you do life and getting to be a part of that, because one of the things I always tell all those guys is that I'm right here.
Yeah.
And I think Billy Lynn, those guys, I think we had them for like 2.5 weeks or some stupid long amount of time.
Yeah.
And I said, after this, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Every one of you will be able to get my phone number and I will be accessible to you as long as I have a heart rate.
Yeah.
I will answer the phone. I will answer text messages. And I think Johnny even said, he goes, you end up in jail, you call us, we show up. That's a promise. And it was.
I believe that. Yeah.
And a lot of you guys I stayed in touch with, and I stayed in touch with the most unlikely of the guys, especially from going all the way back to Lone Survivor and Billy Lynn, being able to talk and stay in touch with these guys, and the phone calls I would get sometimes super late at night. I just had an argument with this producer. How do I handle that? I think my girlfriend and I are breaking up. My girlfriend got pregnant. I have that one. I will not work for this director, but I'm trying to figure out how I can still do, because this project is something I really want to do, but I just can't stand the director. I vowed I would never work with the weirdness like that. Right?
Yeah.
Happened. Hey, I'm having some issues with my dad. Very common one. And that's not just amongst your group and other actors. That's just men in general.
Right.
It's just guys saying, I have a struggle with my dad. I have a hard time forgiving. I have a hard time letting go of something. I have a hard time because I haul around this massive amount of bitterness in my heart, and I don't know what to do with it. And when you start to place a bunch of truth on the table in front of them about that bitterness and the stuff that they've encountered, because a lot of dudes don't talk like this. Like, you and I can have a real conversation. Mm-hmm. I could sit at a table with you. Sam and I talked about this the other day, right? And we're talking about, I asked him, I said, do you have any men in your life that you could sit at a table with in absolute silence? No phone, no TikTok, no Instagram, no TV is on, nobody else around, no beer on the table, soda, nothing. Just two dudes sit there and sit face to face and not be uncomfortable.
Right.
I asked Sammy, I said, do you have anybody in your life that you can do that with? And he was like, I don't think so. He said, do you? I'm like, yeah, got a bunch of them. I said, you're one of them. And for me, you're one of those guys. I could sit in absolute silence with you and be 100% comfortable.
Yeah.
And when you have somebody, and that's a good measure. And a lot of men, they don't know how to measure relationships. And why is it that silence is such a good measure for what you would consider a key relationship in your life? It's because when there's silence, you're no longer using bravado and words to try to put forward who you are, or social media to try to say, this is who I am on social media. There is none of that. You literally are stripped down, and it's a figurative figure of speech, but you're stripped down to the metal when you're sitting just face to face with somebody.
Right.
And being able to do that and stay comfortable. Now, the next one that gets really uncomfortable is do that and just sit there and stare at each other. That gets really, really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever tested that one. Not really interested in it.
I don't really want to. It's a little creepy.
It's just weird.
It's a little creepy, Bram. I was lucky enough in my life to have an amazing father. My dad was I didn't have an older brother. I had my dad. I got a younger sister. So my dad and I, my dad's always been my hero. He was, not without his faults, but a really good human being. He's still with us, thank God. He's coming out for Thanksgiving.
Nice.
But him and he taught me a lot of really important things about what it is to be a good man, to take care of your children, to be there for them, to listen, to be able to talk, to be emotional. Listen, my dad's a tough guy, but I saw him cry. I saw him feel things. I think that's okay if it's real. And I try to tell my kids that.
When's the last time you cried about something?
Oh God, probably the other day.
I cried a good Hallmark commercial, dude.
Yeah, man, I'm super emotional. My wife is like, wow, you're
You're low T.
You're a lot.
She
man.
said, "Yeah, you're low T, dude."
Low T. That doesn't have anything to do with low T, does it? It might.
Hey,
it's like male menopause. I had my doctor
how
tell me.
often do I bring up low T, Zach? Often. Yeah, it's my new joke because was low T, for a while.
We start to get to the age where my doctor calls it male menopause, it's wonderful.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
It is a thing.
I don't know about the male menopause part, but the low T thing, 100%.
I mean, I've always kind of been emotional, even in my very high T days. No, not always low T.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
No.
I've always been kind of low T.
Low T. No. But I think it's important to be able to let your children be who they are, encourage them and encourage their strengths and support their weaknesses and just try to help them as much as you can. But my dad was always really good at that. I could always talk to my dad. I could talk to my dad about anything. And I always think to myself, if I can do half the job he did at being a father, I would be successful. So I had a great role model.
Did you grow up having typical Wisconsin winters, right?
Yeah.
Thermostat or fireplace?
Both.
Nice.
It was both in my house. Yeah.
Yep. So do we.
Yeah.
It was.
You were in northern Wisconsin?
Yeah. Well, middle.
Okay.
Middle of the hand.
Yeah, I was southeastern, so down by the Illinois border, sort of.
Yeah. It was. So we're both from Wisconsin. Zach is from Wisconsin. He's from the Verona area.
Right.
Sam just got back from Rapids, so he went up to visit his grandparents.
Oh, cool.
So my parents. So he went up there for a while. Him and his brother, and they just had a blast up there, just doing Wisconsin things.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun things to do there for sure.
It's just a different world when you're up there, and you go there and you try to explain Los Angeles, San Diego, Southern California to them.
World.
They're like, I don't get it. I don't understand. And my hometown, our mayor is this buddy of mine named Shane. We went to high school together, and our congressman is Derek Van Orden. And we were in the SEAL teams together.
Okay.
And so the three of us are on a 3-way text chat. We're all three Wisconsin boys.
That's great.
And I got these two guys and I didn't know they knew each other until they were together one day and I came up in a conversation. And so they texted me because we ended up in a 3-way chat since then. But we always talk about, it's hard to understand California when all you have to go on is the media.
No, sure.
And they are just what's on TV and things like that. Yeah. So Shane is now getting out of politics. And I said, hey man, you got to come down here and just check it out. You're going to, it'll be like in a whole nother world.
Yeah. It's a whole nother world for sure. And listen, some of my closest, dearest friends live in Wisconsin. Some of my closest, dearest friends live here, and they all have different views on the world and on politics and on religion. But for me, the common denominator is, are you a good person? Mm-hmm. How do you treat other people? Mm-hmm. Are you a kind person? Are you a strong person? Do you stand up for the things you believe in? Mm-hmm. I don't have to agree with you on politics. We don't have to agree to be friends. We have to agree on being a good person. Mm-hmm. That's what
Do you have friends that are not like you politically?
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding? Yeah.
And are they still your friends?
Yeah.
Zach doesn't have any friends that are like him in politics.
Well, here's the thing. Like we've had to work at it. I mean, I've got a couple of really dear friends who are polar opposites in terms of religion and politics, and we talk about it, and we've gotten into it over certain things that we feel differently about. But isn't that what this country's supposed to be about?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Aren't you supposed to be able to sit across from somebody and have a discussion that is heated and feel passionately about what you believe in, and they believe in something different, and then you walk away and you're friends still, because I would help their child if they needed it, and they would help my child if my child needed it.
Yeah.
That's what I care about. I don't really care.
I always tell people I have 3 rules. Rule number 1 is don't lie to me.
Right.
Rule number 2 is don't lie about me. Rule number 3 is be kind.
Yeah.
So those 3 things we're going to nail it if those 3 things happen.
No, those
right?
are great. Those are great rules.
But you know, if somebody is going to be unkind to me, one of the biggest joys of being a dad is teaching my kids how to handle when bad things happen that involves their friends at school when I'm not there.
Yeah.
And so I had the kids, and I think on the last episode, I think we talked about this, right, Sam? The character. What's character? Sam, say it again. What's character?
Character is a place inside you where the things that you do, the things that you say, and the decisions you make come from.
So it's the place inside you where
That's
the things that you say and the things that you do, right? And the decisions that you make, they all come from somewhere inside of you, right? And so walking your boys through that and sitting down at the end of a day and say, okay, so we had the character talk before you said the words before you went in. How did you do? And there was so many times that they would, you know, I think I remember one day you came home from school and you just said, I didn't do well today. What happened? I laughed at a joke, and it was a joke that somebody else said, intended for somebody else, making fun of somebody else.
Sure.
And I laughed at it. I said, well, was it funny?
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, listen.
Sam said it was really funny.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so yeah, go ahead.
I think when you're a kid and you're growing up, you go through bullying, being bullied, bullying, being unkind to others, making jokes at the expense of others. I mean, I'm guilty of all those things.
Yeah.
As you get older, you start to understand how hurtful certain things can be.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn from it, and you don't do it anymore.
Right.
But none of us are perfect. There's no kid out there that doesn't go through some of that stuff. Like either, you know, everyone gets bullied at some point. Some kids bully. I did both. I mean, that's how I grew up.
At some point in your life, you're going to be a part of both. And
right. And all you can do is be sorry for it.
Yeah.
And try to teach your kids differently. And I'm sure my kids will probably go through the same thing.
How old are you guys?
10 and 7.5.
Yeah, I think with my guys, having them experience just having them experience the other side of it, like what happens the next day. Because I remember when the guys came home and they just said, I laughed at a joke. I said, okay, so what do we do tomorrow?
Right.
Was this you or was it Micah?
I think it was Micah.
Yeah, I don't remember which one of you guys, because I said, well, what are you going to do tomorrow? And all you do is just ask questions. They're going to solve the problem themselves. I'm going to go and make it right. I can't wait to hear how that went. Next day he comes home. I have a new friend at school. Well, what happened? Well, remember that kid that was getting laughed at? Yeah, I went up and just told him that I'm sorry, I was wrong. Will you forgive me?
Yeah.
It's the 3 most powerful things you can say to somebody.
Absolutely.
Not I love you. That's weak. Those words get abused. Of course, I love you is powerful. But when you say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, and will you forgive me? That's what I taught the boys. And so the boys would say it to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that to them if I overreacted on something.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a power and a strength to that, because it takes vulnerability to say that I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry. Everybody knows I'm sorry. I was wrong. I know the difference between right and wrong. And will you forgive me? I understand the biblical standard of forgiveness and what it means, and that it's transactional. And so when you are able to say those things, there is a healing power that takes place that is far stronger than just letting it go and allowing maybe some time to bring some balance, like the world would say, right?
Yeah.
It's not gonna work so well in I think as you go through life, you're pretty much gonna figure out that why is everything around me relationally crumbling to the ground as you leave a wake of death and destruction relationally everywhere you go, right?
Right.
But these guys, watching them go through that, and then me just asking questions, they started, there is a way out of this. And then they would come back the next day, I have a new friend, and so there's another, so that's what I mean by the other side of that, right?
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I think with boys, here's another thing that being a parent in today's world, especially being a parent of boys, there's a whole new set of rules that they've got to live by because our society has changed so much in terms of what's acceptable and what's not.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's like they have to really, really understand boundaries and what's acceptable and what's not. And you have to teach that to them because you make a wrong move, you're in trouble. Your life can be ruined. So those things scare me. I mean, I have to be, and I came up, in the 80s and 90s where things were just, it was like the Wild West, There weren't very strict guidelines that boys and young men lived by in terms of what's acceptable and what's not, in terms of what the proper things are in terms of dating and how to talk to women and all those things. All that has changed. So that whole territory is going to be interesting as they get older.
Have you had the talk with the boys about sex and gender and all that kind of stuff? Have they asked any weird questions?
They've asked. There's been a couple things. I mean,
are they in private school or are they in public school?
No, they're in public school.
Public school, good.
Yeah.
And
there's been questions. There's been questions about. My son came home and said, "What is gay? What does gay mean?" And my wife and I were like, "Well, Corey, my beautiful wife, was like, it's like gay means when there's either mom and dad, our mom and dad, but there can be two dads or two moms who love each other, and that's what gay is." Well, that's weird. Well, no, it's not weird. It's different. So, there's a big difference.
Yeah. Well, it's not weird because it's very common, now.
You just have to be careful.
Yeah.
I mean, because every the world has changed. Some in some ways good, in some ways bad. And like I said, you can be gay.
What about the gender piece in the public schools? Like, have they experienced that?
No, they haven't.
They haven't.
And we're very, sort of following that pretty closely because I don't think children are mature enough to really understand what all that is. I mean, if there's a kid who says they feel one way, who's to say that they don't? I stay out of that. In terms of my children, I just listen to what they say, and so far they're both boys, and I'm happy with that. I'll stick with that. If they have some other, we pray every night, and one of the things we say in our prayer is, God, let them always be themselves, let them be content, and let them always be themselves. So whatever that means, I would support it.
Well, you might want me to help you with that one really quick?
Sure.
So content. The difference between content, because a lot of people mix up the word content with satisfied. If you're satisfied, that means that you're pretty much
settling.
Yes.
Right. That's not what I mean by content.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I know. But content, I'm content. I know you're content.
Yes.
You told me off camera. We were over here. We were talking. When I was listening to you, when I was listening to how you were, because I wanted to know how you were. So, hey, how's it going with your industry right now? Because the industry is just they've lost their damn minds, man.
No,
they have just lost it.
Get started on that.
It's
a disaster.
It's just and I sent an awesome email to SAG the other day because I get in it. My email is like I got like 9 things from SAG a day, and I finally sent them an email and it just said I told them what I thought about them and striking and stuff like that. And yeah, go ahead and cancel me. You can go ahead and take away my membership. Even I'm fine with that. Fine with that.
Cancel. Oh boy.
But content. If someone's content, when you're 100% content, and that is so good. That means, hey man, my wife is awesome. My kids are awesome. I have a roof over my head. I have food in the refrigerator. I have a car that gets me around.
That's right.
I'm able to pay my bills. I'm able to, and I get to spend time with these babies, and I get to like impart my wisdoms onto them. I get to spend time with them and watch them grow. It doesn't get any better than that. When you were talking like that, I was like, dude's completely content. But are you satisfied? Better not be.
No, hell no.
You know what I mean?
No, I'm not satisfied. Of course not. In certain, especially with work and that kind of stuff, definitely not. And you're always working to make yourself better, whatever that means.
Yeah.
On every level. But like I said, my children and my wife, that the important things are all intact. And if you can wake up and have those things intact, and I don't want to do anything to mess those things up. I try very hard not to do that.
Yeah.
Now I've got a lot of problems and issues and things that I deal with, but I don't want them to affect that part of my life. We all have our struggles and things that we're dealing with. But it's very important to not put a blemish on that.
On your headstone, what's written on your headstone? What would you want written on your headstone? What are people going to remember you the most for?
Well, I've always been myself. I've never tried to be anything else but myself. And one of the things you said to me when I was standing in front of you and all those other guys, when we sort of had a wrap up that last night, we had to all stand in front of you guys and you guys kind of told us what you thought. And one of the things that was a huge compliment coming from you and all those other guys was like, you know who you are. That's what you said to me. It's like, you know who you are and nothing's going to change. And we like that about you. And that, I felt like that was true. I've always felt that way. I've always I don't change to try to impress other people or be something that I'm not.
Yeah.
I am what I am. I try to become a better version of that, but I've never had an identity crisis. I've never wished I was something else or someone else, or, especially at this point in my life. Do I wish I had more money? Do I wish I had more success in my career? Of course, but I wouldn't want to change places with anyone else. That's just I feel comfortable in my own skin, and I want my boys to feel that too.
Yeah.
I think that if we're going to put something on my gravestone besides.
That's a lot. That's a very type New Roman's time in size 10 font on a very large gravestone. That would fit great.
That'd be great
on there. So
sounds good.
And yeah, that's cool because no one would read it either if it was like
no
that.
one would care.
Yes.
No one would care, Bram.
They would absolutely care.
No, probably not. That's all right.
Well, I want to maybe what we can do, Zach, is just put some links on this that has the links to YouTube, some of the highlights of like stuff that you've done in the movies. You're an insanely talented actor. One of my favorite things to do is go to a movie and not know a whole lot about who's in the movie and see if any, and I always call them my boys, right? Or any of my boys in that movie. And I didn't even think of it during Ford versus Ferrari. It didn't even occur to me that you would be in there. When you were in there, I was just like, oh yes. Yeah. I get so stoked because it's another step in the direction that I know you wanted to go, because acting is what you do and you do so well. And watching that, and then when you came over and you came over, had your wife,
it was great.
And
it was a great
got
visit.
to hang out at the house with you and her and get to know her, because I imagine she wanted to put a
yeah, because when I was doing that movie, when I was working with you guys and doing that movie, she was pregnant with my second son.
Yep.
And you called her and you told her it was going to be all right, and then I'd get back in one piece, and she appreciated that. Although I was questioning why you wanted my wife's number at first. I was like, oh God, is he going to start?
I knew, yeah, we knew she was pregnant. And I was just like, hey, man, what's your wife's number? And you were just like, okay. And you just like, that was way too easy, dude. What are you doing?
Oh God.
And you did ask why. I said,
of
well,
course I did.
I want to give her an update on you.
Yeah, which was very
because
kind of you.
you're in the middle of stuff, and I think because I think the producers told us that you had a baby due, and it could happen pretty much any time, and they were afraid of that. And I just said, let's make sure. And we never got that number, so I got it from you.
Yeah,
and Johnny and I we were there, and I was calling, and I was like kind of like doing this is Instructor Bram from Camp Juilliard, home of the Wayward Boys.
Corey was like, oh God, what is going on here?
She was like, wait, who is this?
When I called her the first night, I said, she's like, hey. I'm like, she's like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? I'm like, it's going to be a terrible week. And I just wanted to call and tell you I can't talk to you anymore.
Tell you that
Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
I love you.
Not kidding. Why? Yeah, it was memorable for sure.
Man, those were some good times, though. I mean, I look back and I just had a blast.
Yeah, it was. I'm glad you had such a fun time. That's great.
Oh, Sam, why am I here on this planet?
To entertain yourself.
To entertain myself.
I always tell my wife that my sole purpose in the family is for entertainment, for the children and for her and for myself.
Yeah.
So it kind of broadens out a little bit.
I'm here to entertain me. I'm just going to use him to do it. And at times you and,
Sure, why not?
Miles and Cole and Hayes and Beulah. I mean, the next time you talk to any of those guys, you tell them I said hello.
I will, man, for sure.
I think you gave me a number for Beulah last time. It didn't work.
Really?
Yeah, and so it literally said
his number. That's what I got.
Maybe it just got kicked back or whatever. It's not a big deal. But just tell them I said hi. Tell them I miss those guys and hope everything's going well for them. And Brad, thanks for coming and hanging out with us.
Thanks for taking the time, man. It was great.
Yeah, this was fun.
This
was fun. So I want you to go on, do amazing stuff. The Old Man is the next one that we can look for you.
Man, I start working on in January. So
okay,
we'll see.
Any more after that?
No, I mean we don't have there's no work going on right now. So I got that before the strike happened. So we'll see how that goes, and then hopefully there'll be more after that.
All right,
other things.
We'll look for you in that.
Thanks, Brad.
So, dude, you're awesome.
You're awesome.
Bram Radio.